today we're gonna see one of the best fights in anime history, and that's Rock Lee versus Gaara. And I'm not gonna lie, but both Rock Lee and Gaara were both goated back in OG Naruto. But nowadays, they're low-key just kinda meh. Like, Boruto both did these two pretty dirty, I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, the episode starts with Rock Lee and Gaara being both selected to fight in the Chunin exams. And my goat Rock Lee looks hella pumped up to fight Gaara. Like, Rock Lee was just itching to put his hands on somebody. Lee hops into the arena and hits his iconic ass pose, while Gaara over here is low-key just giving off some school shooter vibes. And while Lee and Gaara are both staring down at each other, one of Gaara's teammates just decides to glaze him for some odd reason and say that Rock Lee has zero chance at beating Gaara. And I have zero clue as to why Conqueror was even talking shit about Rock Lee, because I'm certainly sure that Rock Lee could just easily put this man in a pack. But anyways, Lee and Gaara start their fight, and Lee dashes towards Gaara and tries to kick him, but the kick doesn't work because his sand blocks the attack. And if I was Rock Lee, I would have low-key been mad tight, because I'm out here putting all this work just to get one single hit on Gaara, and his fucking sand is just guarding him, bro. Like, you can't tell me Gaara's sand isn't a cheat code for him. Lee continues on trying to attack Gaara, but that shit obviously just doesn't work, and eventually Gaara just uses his sand to grab Lee and throw him into the wall. And everyone just starts wondering why the hell isn't Lee just using ninjutsu or genjutsu, but it's eventually revealed that Lee can't learn any other jutsu aside from taijutsu, so he's kinda handicapped in a way. But since Rock Lee couldn't learn any other jutsu, he put most of his time and energy into taijutsu, so he's basically one of the best taijutsu users. So Guy tells Rock Lee to take off his weights, and everyone's just thinking they're just some light ass weights, but once them bitches hit the ground, they cause a fucking crater. And once Lee had released his weights, he was ready for that action, because he just zooms directly at Gaara and then just starts speed blitzing him. And Gaara's face has me dead right now because he knows he's about to get cooked soon. Lee continues moving around Gaara until he finally gets a solid hit on him by kicking the back of his head. And I can just tell by that one single attack that Gaara definitely got a concussion. But after Lee had gotten a solid hit on Gaara, everyone just looks completely dumbfounded on how Gaara managed to actually get hit. But Guy on the other hand doesn't care and is just hyping up Lee. And Lee must be feeling that shit because he just turns into Usain Bolt and then just starts racing around Gaara until Lee socks the absolute mess out of Gaara, sending this man flying. And I just know Lee has this big ass smile on his face because shit, I would too if I'm beating this man's ass horrendously. But Gaara gets back up and then has this evil ass smile on his face. Like, this is the smile of a person that just does not give a fuck about your well-being. Like, I guarantee if it was just your average ninja fighting against Gaara, they would have been ran away. But Lee already has a strategy cooking up, so he decides to run around Gaara and then kicks him all the way up into the air. Lee would then continue kicking Gaara until they eventually reach the ceiling, and then Lee would then use his bandages to wrap around Gaara as he then starts spinning around. He then forcefully plummets Gaara into the ground and then causes this huge ass crater as Gaara looks like he's finally been beat. And while Guy is celebrating for my boy Lee, it's eventually discovered that Lee didn't actually do shit, because it turns out Gaara was just using a doppelganger made out of sand. So then the real Gaara appears and then uses the sand to push back Rock Lee, and after he manages to dodge that, he then just sends a wave of sand at Rock Lee. Like, Gaara was not holding back against Lee at all. After Lee realizes that he's backed up into a corner, he decides to reveal his true power and releases the third gates. And after Lee had finished charging up, he then zooms at Gaara and then kicks him in the chin. And I'ma keep it a buck, but that first kick should have sent Gaara straight into heaven. I mean, just look at how fast Lee was traveling right here. Like, you're telling me that amount of force put into that kick wouldn't have murdered Gaara? But once Lee had kicked Gaara all the way up into the air, he then goes in front of Gaara and then punches him in the chest, launching him all the way back. And also, I just noticed that Rock Lee is punching Gaara so hard that he's literally generating shockwaves. Like, even though Rock Lee is just 12 years old, this man is basically already Jonin level. Like, I'm not even finna cap. But after Gaara gets launched back, Lee comes in from behind and then punches him from the back. And after that, Lee just basically starts juggling around Gaara. And from the looks of it, Gaara's sand armor looks like it's 1 minute away from shattering. And Gaara already knows the minute that his sand armor finally gets destroyed, he's already cooked. Lee gets ready to launch another one of his attacks, but before he does that, he turns around to Neji and is like, this would have been your ass if I was fighting you instead of Gaara. And it's not really far-fetched to say that, that because what in the world is Neji gonna do against the third gate? Like, come on, bro. His special eyes are doing nothing to Lee. Lee would then vanish before punching Gaara away, and just before Gaara could hit the ground, Lee would then use his bandages to pull Gaara forward and then punch him and kick him simultaneously, sending Gaara all the way to the ground crashing. And Lee basically had thought that he won this fight because Gaara had ran out of sand to protect himself with, but there was one thing that Rock Lee forgot to account for, and that was Gaara's guard, because it's eventually discovered that his guard is made out of sand. So just before he could hit the ground, his guard transformed into a bunch of sand and cushioned the fall for him. And when everyone in the tuning exam saw Gaara wide awake and conscious, they were low-key kind of shocked because they were damn sure that final attack would have at least finished off Gaara. But now that Rock Lee had basically used all his energy up on the third gate, bro was basically tired and depleted. So this finally gave the chance for Gaara to attack Rock Lee while he was tired. So Gaara proceeds to use his sand and crush Rock Lee's arm and leg. And this attack alone just flat out completely knocked out Rock Lee. But Gaara wasn't done with Lee just yet because he wanted to put this man in a pack. So he finally uses his sand to finish off Lee, but before he could do that, Guy comes in and stops Gaara from finishing off Rock Lee. And since Guy had to step into the arena, that gives Gaara the automatic win. But Gaara doesn't really give a fuck that he won the fight and just walks away. But before he could fully walk away from the arena, this man Rock Lee, looking severely beaten and having several bones broken, still gets back up unconsciously and gets back into his stance. Like, in all honesty, but Rock Lee is really that guy, like, come on! And I don't really care if you guys tell me otherwise, but if it was any other person aside from Gaara, then Rock Lee would have low-key won this match. Like, Gaara had some crazy ass plot armor in this fight, I won't cap. But anyways, even though Rock Lee had lost this fight, this doesn't really change the fact that this man is still the GOAT.